The first light of morning barely pierces through the gray hospital blinds, casting long, cold stripes across the sterile walls. James sits on the edge of the hospital bed, fingers drumming a nervous rhythm against his thighs. His world, usually so predictable, alarm clock at 7, coffee at 7:30, a shared breakfast with Eliza feels like it's collapsing in slow motion. Today, the steady pulse of routine has been replaced with uncertainty, a gnawing fear lodged deep in his chest. He glances toward the door, half expecting Eliza to rush in with her usual warmth, her hair in a messy bun, and her eyes sparkling with that mischievous curiosity that made him fall in love with her. But the chair beside the bed remains empty. Her absence is not just noticed, it aches. A dull ache that reverberates through every fiber of his being, louder than the beeping of the heart monitor beside him. A nurse enters quietly, clipboard in hand, her shoes clicking softly against the polished linoleum. She's tall, with kind eyes that seem to understand more than she lets on. She offers a brief smile, but there's a firmness in her gaze that unsettles him. "Mr. James, the doctor will see you shortly," she says, her voice calm but deliberate. She doesn't wait for a response before moving toward the door, but not before adding, almost in a whisper, "And your fiancé, she should know what's at stake." James swallows hard, confusion twisting with an unexpected pang of dread. Eliza knows, doesn't she? Or maybe she doesn't. The thought is both comforting and terrifying. He wants to believe she's there somewhere, making the phone call that will bring her running to his side. But deep down, he senses that she is somewhere else, wrapped up in a life that doesn't include him in his most vulnerable moment. The door swings open again, and Dr. Mercer steps in. His presence is a mixture of authority and gentle empathy, a man accustomed to delivering news that could shatter lives. He gives a small nod toward James before speaking. "James, we've reviewed your tests and—" His words falter just slightly, as if even the most practiced doctor struggles with this particular delivery. "You have a condition that will require surgery soon. The sooner, the better. But it's serious." James feels his chest tighten, as if invisible hands have grabbed him. His vision blurs at the edges, and the walls seem to close in. He nods, muttering, I understand," though he knows he doesn't. He doesn't understand how life can pivot so violently in a single sentence. "Do you have someone with you?" Dr. Mercer asks, his eyes scanning the empty chair beside the bed. The question lands like a hammer. Someone with him. But the one person he imagined, the one person who was supposed to stand beside him through everything, is not there. Eliza had promised. She had promised him 1,000 times that they'd face life together, no matter what. But somewhere between a business pitch and an international trip, those promises now feel like whispers of a past life. James clenches his fists beneath the hospital blanket, anger and hurt mingling with fear. The nurse reappears, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's okay to be scared," she says softly. "But you have to be ready to fight, James. And sometimes those we love aren't where we expect them to be." Her words sting more than the diagnosis. He wants to believe Eliza would never leave his side in a moment like this, but the reality is undeniable. Her absence is a presence in itself, a constant reminder of choices made, priorities shifted, and love tested in ways that feel cruelly cinematic. James's mind drifts to the last time he saw her. She was rushing through the apartment, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, phone glued to her ear, oblivious to the world around her. "I can't miss this opportunity." "James," she'd said, voice tinged with excitement, "this trip could change everything for my career." He had smiled, forcing a supportive nod, telling himself it was okay, that he understood. But now it feels like a betrayal carved into the very air he breathes. He leans back against the crisp hospital sheets, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts twist in on themselves, a storm of what-ifs and regrets. What if she had stayed? What if this moment could have been different? What if he wasn't so alone? A sterile smell of disinfectant and the faint hum of machines surround him, suffocating in its quiet permanence. Suddenly, the nurse's voice cuts through the haze of despair. "James," she says, softer this time, almost conspiratorial. "Sometimes, the truth is easier to face when you see it yourself. But it also hurts the people who refuse to look." She places the clipboard down and meets his eyes. There's something in her gaze, a mixture of warning and understanding, that chills him. He doesn't fully understand, but a cold knot forms in his stomach. The nurse's subtle glance toward the door suggests she knows more than she's letting on about Eliza's absence, about choices and consequences. And in that moment, James realizes that life, as predictable as he thought it was, has been pulled from beneath his feet. Hours blur as he waits. The bright hospital lights dim slightly with the afternoon sun, casting shadows across the floor. Each passing minute stretches endlessly, every echo of footsteps a reminder that he is here, waiting, while the woman he loves is somewhere else. He pulls out his phone, fingers trembling, and types a message he's written 1,000 times in his head. "I need you. Now." He hesitates, thumb hovering over the send button, the words feeling simultaneously weak and powerful. Finally, he presses send, and the message drifts into the void, uncertain if she will answer, uncertain if she even can. The nurse returns, and this time she carries a tray of water and some paperwork. She sets them down without a word, her eyes meeting his briefly. There is empathy there, but also a hint of something unspoken in awareness of the emotional chasm between him and Eliza that he cannot bridge alone. "Try to rest," she says quietly, adjusting his blanket. "The doctor will be back soon. And—" She hesitates, as if weighing her words. Sometimes people choose paths that aren't ours to judge. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. James nods, swallowing the lump in his throat. Hurt, betrayal, fear, they all intertwine into a knot that seems impossible to untangle. He closes his eyes, letting the sterile, cold walls of the hospital fade away for a moment, replaced by memories of laughter, warmth, and love. Memories of Eliza, vivid and aching, that now feel both comforting and painfully distant. And then, as the sun begins to dip behind the city skyline outside the hospital window, casting a fiery orange glow that spills across the room, James senses a change, a subtle shift in the air, as if the universe itself is preparing him for the storm ahead. The nurse's words linger in his mind, a haunting whisper of truth he isn't ready to face. Some choices have consequences we cannot escape, no matter how much we love. And somewhere, beyond the hospital walls, Eliza is making a choice that will alter the course of both their lives. James lies in the hospital bed, the antiseptic smell sharp and suffocating. His eyes trace the pale green walls, searching for some trace of comfort, some flicker of her presence. But the room is mercilessly empty. Machines beep rhythmically, a mechanical heartbeat that contrasts cruelly with the chaos in his chest. Every pulse is a reminder of the fragility of life, every breath a testament to the uncertainty he cannot control. He shifts, wincing as pain radiates from his chest, a dull throb punctuated by sharp pangs. He reaches out, almost unconsciously, for her hand, imagining it resting in his. But the bed beside him is empty, and the cold hospital sheets cling to his skin like the isolation wrapping around his soul. Memories begin to surface unbidden, vivid, and relentless. He sees her laughing in the golden afternoon light of their first date, the way her hair caught the breeze, the sparkle in her eyes when she leaned close. He remembers the nights they spent wrapped in each other's arms, whispered confessions spilling between kisses, promises of forever echoing in the quiet. He wants to reach out to her now, to feel that warmth, that certainty, but the reality is cruel. She is not here. His phone buzzes suddenly, vibrating against the sterile mattress. Hope rises like a fragile flame, only to be extinguished as he sees the screen, her name flashing across it. He grabs the phone, hands trembling, voice tight. "Eliza," he whispers. Her voice comes through, calm but distant, the tone of a person carrying the weight of decisions already made. "James, I'm sorry," she says. The apology hangs in the air, hollow and unreachable, a fragile thread stretching across a chasm he cannot bridge. "Sorry?" He breathes, heart clenching. You're leaving me here now? When I need you the most?" His voice is sharp, edged with disbelief and hurt, cracking under the strain of vulnerability. I have to be there, James. It's important. This opportunity, my career, can't wait. I wish things were different, but I have to go." He feels the words as blows to his chest, each one knocking the wind from him, leaving his heart bruised and trembling. "So, my life, my surgery, it's less important than your schedule?" His voice is barely more than a whisper, but it echoes like a hammer in the sterile room. There's silence after her words, punctuated only by the soft beeping of the heart monitor. He grips the edge of the mattress, nails pressing into the fabric, trying to anchor himself to some part of reality that feels real. The hospital walls seem to close in, the fluorescent lights harsh and accusing. He can almost see her walking away in his mind, turning her back on him, and the image sears itself into his memory. Tears sting his eyes as he presses his forehead against the cool sheets, tasting the bitterness of betrayal mingled with longing. Every shared memory becomes a knife twisting in his chest. He recalls mornings of laughter over burnt toast, rainy afternoons spent huddled together under one umbrella, quiet evenings tracing each other's faces in dimly lit rooms. They were not just memories. They were pieces of him she had promised never to abandon. He picks up the phone again, staring at it as if willing her to answer differently, to say something that undoes the hurt. But the call is already ended, her absence solidified in a digital gesture. The line between love and neglect blurs, leaving him suspended in a painful limbo. A nurse enters quietly, her footsteps soft on the tiled floor. She notices the tension etched across his face, the way he clutches the mattress like it's a lifeline. "Mr. James, you need to rest," she says gently, but her eyes linger on him with understanding, sympathy that words cannot convey. She doesn't ask about the phone call. She doesn't need to. She already knows the weight of waiting for someone who should be there. James nods weakly, unable to speak, unable to voice the storm of emotions raging inside him. Anger and fear, sorrow and longing, all collide in a silent explosion. The nurse adjusts his blanket, her hands firm yet comforting. "You're not alone," she murmurs. Not everything is as it seems. He tries to hold on to that, a faint suggestion that hope might still exist. But every echo of Eliza's voice in his head, every imagined smile that once brought warmth, now becomes a reminder of her absence. His mind replays the choices she made, the priorities she chose, and he can't help but wonder if love alone is enough to bridge the distance she has placed between them. Hours pass like days. The hospital room remains a muted theater of his grief, lit only by the fading afternoon sun through the blinds. He drifts between sleep and wakefulness, haunted by dreams of her hands leaving his, the cold touch of abandonment replacing the warmth he once took for granted. Each time he opens his eyes, reality hits him anew. She is not here. His phone vibrates again, and his heart leaps involuntarily before he sees the message. "I'll call when I can. Don't worry too much." A simple line, detached and clinical, but it cuts him in a way words rarely do. He holds the device to his chest, imagining her voice beside him, the promise of reassurance unfulfilled. He lets the tears fall freely now, no longer hiding behind clenched jaws or forced strength. The room bears witness to his solitude, the machines and walls absorbing the quiet heartbreak. In the silence, he whispers her name like a prayer, A plea for presence that is nowhere to be found. Memories and reality blend. The warmth of past embraces with the cold sterility of hospital beds. The laughter and promises collide with absence and fear. James feels the sharp sting of loneliness, of love deferred, yet he cannot bring himself to hate her. Somewhere beneath the pain, beneath the betrayal, hope still flickers. Even as he lies there, abandoned in body but not in heart, he knows that this moment will define what comes next. The choice she made will shape the distance between them. The questions left unanswered will echo in the spaces they once shared, and the weight of love will bear down heavier than ever. And still, beneath the ache and the fear, he clings to the one truth that remains. Love does not end with absence. It waits, it survives. And he waits with it, heart open, wounded, yet unwilling to let go. The hospital room smells of antiseptic and quiet desperation. James lies still on the bed, a thin blanket covering him, staring at the pale ceiling. The hum of monitors is the only rhythm in the room, punctuating the emptiness left by the absence of the person he thought would be here, Eliza. The door swings open, and a woman steps in, clipboard in hand. Her hair is neatly tied back, but her eyes sharp, clear, and unwavering, seem to look straight through the defenses people so carefully build. She's tall, professional, but there's an intensity in her gaze that hints at empathy and a relentless honesty. "Good afternoon, Mr. James," she says, her voice calm but commanding. "I'm Nurse Rowan. I'll be checking on you today." James nods, a weak smile flickering across his face. "Thanks, I think." She glances briefly at the chair beside him, still empty. "Your fiancé isn't here," she states, matter-of-factly, as if noting an obvious absence rather than asking a question. There's no judgment in her tone, only clarity. And yet, those few words land like a weight in James' chest. She's caught up with work, he mutters, voice barely above a whisper. He feels a surge of frustration and hurt rising, the familiar ache of disappointment. Nurse Rowan sets the clipboard down and walks closer. "Work," she repeats, almost thoughtfully. "It's remarkable what people choose over love when they're blinded by ambition. But choice has consequences." James swallows hard, unsure whether to be comforted or unsettled by her words. There's a wisdom in her voice, an unspoken understanding of human frailty. She checks his foreline, adjusts the blanket, but her eyes never leave him. There's a moment of silence, the kind that feels thick with meaning, before she speaks again. "And you, James," she says gently, "you've done nothing wrong. But you're here, waiting, feeling abandoned. That's the truth of it, isn't it?" He doesn't answer immediately. His jaw tightens, and he stares at the sterile ceiling, memories of Eliza flooding in. Their laughter in the rain, the quiet mornings over coffee, the nights spent talking until dawn, all of it feels distant now, fading into a haze of guilt and longing. "She called me earlier," James admits finally, voice low. "From the airport," she said. "She can't make it." That this trip is important for her career. Nurse Rowan nods slowly, her lips pressed into a firm line. "Important," she repeats, echoing his own disbelief. "I see it a lot. People prioritizing their ambitions, thinking love will wait. But love doesn't wait, James. And sometimes it teaches the hardest lessons when it's left waiting." James feels a shiver run down his spine. The nurse isn't just talking to him. She's speaking to the space between him and Eliza, the invisible gap that stretches wider with each passing moment. "Do you want the truth?" she asks, leaning slightly closer, her tone softening. "Because I see your fiancé." And she doesn't yet see the consequences of her choices. But she will. And when she does, she have to face them. All of them. Not in theory, but in reality. James swallows again, his throat tight. I just don't know if she can. She can, Nurse Rowan interrupts, firm but gentle. But people don't always act until the stakes are clear. Right now, she's focused on flights and meetings, thinking deadlines matter more than a heart waiting for her. But hearts, they don't forgive absence easily. Her words sting with honesty, and James feels tears prick at the corners of his eyes. But there's also a spark of something else, a strange hope, fragile and hesitant, that maybe this confrontation, even if it's only through her eyes, will awaken something in Eliza Dodd, as if summoned by the universe. The door swings open, and Eliza steps in. She's in her business attire, hair perfectly arranged, but there's a tension in her posture, a flicker of guilt that she can't hide. Her eyes meet James, and for a moment, the room seems to shrink around them. James, she begins, voice unsteady. Nurse Rowan steps slightly forward, not intruding, but her presence is undeniable. She's here, the nurse says softly to James, and she's about to hear something she needs to hear. Then, looking directly at Eliza, her tone sharpens just enough to pierce through her defenses. Do you even realize what you've left behind? Eliza blinks, startled. Her hands tighten around her briefcase, and she takes a hesitant step forward. You thought your work would wait, that your absence would be forgiven without consequence, Nurse Rowan says, voice steady, eyes unwavering. But love isn't blind. It sees everything. It feels everything. And it knows when it's been set aside. Eliza swallows hard. She glances at James, who lies there, vulnerable, hurt, yet still holding space for her in his heart. The sight cuts through her like a knife, her career, her ambition. All of it suddenly feels hollow compared to the raw, living reality of the man she loves, waiting for her in pain. James, she whispers, stepping closer. I didn't mean. Nurse Rowan's gaze flicks between them. Intentions don't erase impact, she says quietly, almost to herself. You see, Miss Eliza, love is not about promises whispered in comfort. It's about presence when it's needed most. You're learning that now, whether you want to or not. Eliza's shoulders slump, guilt and fear warring in her chest. I don't know how to fix this, she admits, voice breaking. I can't change what I did. You can, Nurse Rowan says firmly. You can start by showing up, by being present, by acknowledging the pain you've caused and choosing to make it right. Nothing more, nothing less. But it has to be genuine. For the first time, Eliza meets James' eyes fully. His gaze is steady, a mixture of hurt and longing, but also a silent plea for connection. She sees everything she's been blind to, the moments she missed, the promises she broke, the love she almost let slip through her fingers. The room feels electric, the air thick with tension, remorse, and unspoken emotion. Nurse Rowan quietly steps back, letting them navigate this fragile space themselves. But the truth she's spoken lingers, like a shadow in the corners of the room. Impossible to ignore. James shifts slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. I've waited, but I need to know if you're really here, or if this is just another fleeting moment before you leave again. Eliza swallows, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm here, she whispers. I want to be. Nurse Rowan nods once, subtly satisfied that her words have begun to pierce the armor around Eliza's heart. She gives a small smile to James before turning to leave, her presence a quiet catalyst that has forced truth into the room. As the door closes, the silence between them is no longer empty. It's charged, fragile, filled with the weight of choices made and the possibilities of what might come next. The first step has been taken, but the journey to repair what has been broken is just beginning. The rain falls in relentless sheets outside the hospital window, turning the world beyond into a blur of gray and silver. James stares at the droplets racing down the glass, tracing erratic paths as if each one carries a memory. The room smells of antiseptic, but in his mind, the scent of wet earth and Eliza's hair after a storm replaces it, vivid and consuming. He closes his eyes, letting the memories wash over him like the rain itself. It was a night, not long ago, the sky heavy with clouds, thunder rumbling faintly in the distance. He and Eliza had run barefoot through puddles, laughing until their lungs ached, soaked to the skin and yet warmed by the electricity of being together. Their fingers had intertwined, unshakable, a promise made in motion. A stolen kiss under the awning of a closed cafe, rainwater dripping into their hair, had felt like the world had paused for them alone. A sudden beep from the monitor pulls him back to the present, and the harsh fluorescent lights sting his eyes. The hospital walls are cold, lifeless, a stark contrast to the warmth of those rainy nights. He lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, clenching the thin blanket around him like a lifeline. The contrast between memory and reality slices deep. What once felt eternal now feels painfully unreachable. Meanwhile, Eliza grips the steering wheel of her sleek black car, the city streets slick with rain, reflecting the glow of streetlights. She had meant to rush, to make her flight, to catch the conference that could redefine her career, but the thought of James, vulnerable and waiting, claws at her conscience. Her reflection in the rearview mirror is distorted by streaks of rain, a fractured image that mirrors the guilt in her heart. She drives past the hospital, slowing almost instinctively, the building looming in the periphery of her mind. A memory flashes a quiet night spent on the balcony of their tiny apartment, the rain tapping softly on the roof above, her head resting against his shoulder as they talked about everything and nothing. "I love how storms make everything feel alive," she had whispered, her breath warm against his neck. He had smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "As long as we face them together, nothing can drown us." The weight of that promise hits her now with brutal clarity. She had chosen a conference room over a hospital bed, a presentation over a heartbeat. Each raindrop on the windshield feels like a tiny rebuke, tapping against the glass, reminding her of what she left behind. Her fingers tighten around the wheel, knuckles white. She wants to turn, to run back, to undo the hours she let slip, but pride and fear hold her frozen. Back in the hospital, James shifts in bed, pulling the thin sheets tighter around him. The memory of their shared secrets, a whispered joke about a mutual crush in college, a silly dare that ended in laughter under a summer storm comes unbidden. He remembers the way she had leaned into him, forehead pressed against his, eyes closed as if the world outside could vanish entirely. The intimacy of those moments makes the present silence unbearable. His phone buzzes on the bedside table, and for a fleeting second, hope flares. He reaches for it, but the screen only reflects a message from Nurse Rowan. "He needs you to be here when he wakes." Her words, though gentle, are firm, a reminder that the reality of life cannot be postponed or ignored. James leans back against the pillows, letting the memories blur into one another, the smell of rain-soaked streets, the warmth of shared laughter, the softness of her voice calling his name. He can almost feel her hand brush against his, a phantom touch that leaves him aching and yearning. The hospital room, sterile and silent, feels like a cage, every beeping monitor a reminder of absence. Outside, Eliza finally pulls the car to a stop near the hospital's entrance. She stares through the rain-specked windshield, unable to move. Memories of rainy nights come flooding back. Their first accidental kiss during a downpour, their laughter echoing down empty streets, her clinging to him as thunder rolled overhead. Each memory feels like both a sanctuary and a wound. The contrast between those moments and the sterile, cold hospital reality is unbearable. She exhales shakily, pressing her forehead to the steering wheel. Tears mix with the rain on the glass, streaking her vision. "I'm so sorry, James," she whispers, voice trembling. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but I can't. I can't leave him like this." Inside, James' thoughts spiral into what-ifs and maybes. What if she never comes? What if her ambition always outweighs their love? What if this night, these memories, are all that remained of what they once had? The beeping monitors echo the anxiety thrumming in his chest, each sound a reminder that life, fragile and fleeting, waits for no one. The rain outside begins to let up, leaving the city glistening in reflective pools. A stray ray of light pierces through the gray clouds, catching the edge of the hospital's metal facade. James watches it, and for a moment, hope flickers faintly, fragile and tentative. Memories are powerful. They remind him of the love he still feels, the bond that refuses to break, even under the weight of absence. Eliza finally steps out of the car, rain dripping from her hair and coat, the cold metal of the hospital doors pressing reality back into her hands. Each step toward the entrance is heavy, laden with the memory of everything she has missed. She doesn't know if James will forgive, if their love can survive this test, but she knows she cannot turn back anymore. The past and present collide in her chest, each heartbeat echoing the gravity of the moment. James hears footsteps in the corridor outside and instinctively lifts his head, his pulse quickening. The phantom warmth of rainy nights still lingers in his mind, but now it is mingled with anticipation, with the knowledge that the next moments will redefine everything. And then the door opens. The room fills with the scent of wet coats and faint perfume, and for the first time since he arrived, James feels the possibility of presence, of love actively choosing him over ambition. The tension between memory and reality hangs thick in the air, a fragile bridge between what was and what might still be. The hospital corridors stretch endlessly, polished floors reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights above. Each passing nurse, each distant beep, feels like a reminder of the world moving on, while James remains suspended in time. He sits propped against the stiff hospital pillows, sheets tucked around his shoulders, staring blankly at the sterile walls. The physical pain is tangible, a dull thrum in his chest, but it is the absence of her presence that cuts far deeper, leaving an emptiness no medicine can touch. The days have blurred into each other. Meals come and go unnoticed. Nurses pass with routine efficiency, but James sees none of it. Each phone call he makes, each text sent, echoes into the void. Eliza's voice on the line is always rushed, clipped, distant. She apologizes, promises she'll come, but the weight of her absence is a tangible force pressing down on him. In the quiet of the corridor outside his room, Nurse Rowan stands near the nurse's station, watching. Her sharp eyes track the comings and goings, the silent tension vibrating through the hospital like an electric current. She knows this moment is coming, has been coming. The collision of love, pride, and regret is inevitable, and she waits with quiet patience, ready to step in if the storm threatens to break too harshly. James closes his eyes and lets his mind wander to every ordinary, extraordinary moment with her. The soft brush of her fingers against his hand as they walked through the park, the whispered jokes shared in the dim light of their apartment, the quiet mornings where coffee tasted better simply because they shared it together. Every memory is magnified now, painfully bright against the dim reality of his hospital room. Then, finally, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes down the corridor, boots squeaking against the polished floor, the faint click of heels he knows too well. His heart tightens painfully in his chest. He lifts his head, and through the frosted glass door, he sees her Eliza standing there, soaked slightly from the rain, coat clinging to her shoulders, hair damp. Her eyes are wide, a mixture of guilt, fear, and determination. She hesitates at the threshold, as if the space between them is a chasm too wide to cross in a single step. James watches, silent, his pulse thrumming in his ears. The weight of all the days she has been absent hangs between them like a storm cloud. The world outside is muffled, rain drumming a persistent rhythm against the hospital windows. A soundtrack to the tension in the room. Eliza finally pushes the door open, the squeal of hinges cutting through the heavy silence. Her gaze locks on him, lingering for a moment too long. James. Her voice falters, cracking slightly under the weight of everything she has left unsaid. James doesn't move. He watches her, chest tight, trying to reconcile the woman who stands before him with the memories of laughter, kisses, and promises. "You're late," he says quietly, voice low, controlled, but there is an undercurrent of pain that she can't ignore. "I know," she whispers, stepping closer, but stopping short of the bed. I had to finish." "Finish what?" James interrupts, eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and hurt. "Your career? Your life?" "Because I was waiting for you to be here. And you weren't." Her lips part, words caught in her throat. She looks down, ashamed, twisting the strap of her bag nervously. "James, I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to?" The words come sharp, brittle, carrying the weight of every empty promise, every missed phone call, every night he spent imagining her walking through that door and finding it empty. "You chose to be somewhere else, while I was here, facing everything alone." The air between them seems to thicken, dense with unspoken feelings. Nurse Rowan, still just outside the room, watches quietly, sensing the fragility of the moment. She knows that one wrong word, one missed gesture, could send this delicate confrontation spiraling into resentment. Yet she also knows that the truth must be faced, and she allows them the space to navigate it themselves. Eliza takes a tentative step closer, eyes glistening. "James, I didn't realize. I didn't understand how much it would hurt you, being left like this. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing?" James repeats bitterly, the corners of his mouth twitching. "The right thing? Tell me, Eliza, was it really the right thing when I called and all I heard was your voice saying, 'I can't, I'm busy'?" Her hand reaches out slowly, almost instinctively, but stops inches from his. Her thumb hovers, trembling, over the hospital blanket. I'm here now," she says, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to. I want to make it right." James swallows hard, his heart torn between longing and resentment. The memories of rainy nights, quiet mornings, whispered secrets, they clash violently with the present, where absence has carved deep lines into his trust. "It's not that simple," he says finally, voice low but firm. "You don't just show up and erase the hurt, Eliza. You don't just come back and pretend like nothing happened." She nods, tears spilling freely now, streaking her cheeks. "I know. I have to earn it back. I have to prove that I'm here for you, truly." The tension between them is almost tangible, a living thing in the room. Every word, every pause, every glance carries the weight of their shared history, their love, and the fractures that now threaten to tear it apart. The storm outside seems to mirror the storm inside, relentless, unyielding, beautiful in its chaos. James shifts slightly, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. His eyes, dark and searching, find hers, and for a moment, silence reigns. The world outside the hospital fades, leaving only the two of them, raw and exposed. Standing at the precipice of choice. Nurse Rowan watches from the doorway, her presence a quiet anchor, knowing that the confrontation is just beginning, but also understanding that sometimes the hardest truths must be spoken before healing can start. The second stretch, taut and fragile, until James finally speaks, voice trembling but steady. "I need to know, are you really here, Eliza? Or is this just another moment before you leave again?" Eliza's fingers tighten around his hand, finally bridging the gap, their warmth electric against the sterile cold of the hospital room. "I'm here," she whispers, her voice raw with honesty. "I want to be. I don't want to leave you again." For a heartbeat, the world seems to hold its breath. The rain outside softened into a gentle patter. The storm inside mirrored in hearts, learning to confront pain, guilt, and love simultaneously. The hospital corridors stretch endlessly, polished floors reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights above. Each passing nurse, each distant beep, feels like a reminder of the world moving on, while James remains suspended in time. He sits propped against the stiff hospital pillows, sheets tucked around his shoulders, staring blankly at the sterile walls. The physical pain is tangible, a dull thrum in his chest, but it is the absence of her presence that cuts far deeper, leaving an emptiness no medicine can touch. The days have blurred into each other. Meals come and go unnoticed. Nurses pass with routine efficiency, but James sees none of it. Each phone call he makes, each text sent, echoes into the void. Eliza's voice on the line is always rushed, clipped, distant. She apologizes, promises she'll come, but the weight of her absence is a tangible force pressing down on him. In the quiet of the corridor outside his room, Nurse Rowan stands near the nurse's station, watching. Her sharp eyes track the comings and goings, the silent tension vibrating through the hospital like an electric current. She knows this moment is coming, has been coming. The collision of love, pride, and regret is inevitable, and she waits with quiet patience, ready to step in if the storm threatens to break too harshly. James closes his eyes and lets his mind wander to every ordinary, extraordinary moment with her. The soft brush of her fingers against his hand as they walked through the park, the whispered jokes shared in the dim light of their apartment, the quiet mornings where coffee tasted better simply because they shared it together. Every memory is magnified now, painfully bright against the dim reality of his hospital room. Then, finally, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes down the corridor, boots squeaking against the polished floor, the faint click of heels he knows too well. His heart tightens painfully in his chest. He lifts his head, and through the frosted glass door, he sees her Eliza standing there, soaked slightly from the rain, coat clinging to her shoulders, hair damp. Her eyes are wide, a mixture of guilt, fear, and determination. She hesitates at the threshold, as if the space between them is a chasm too wide to cross in a single step. James watches, silent, his pulse thrumming in his ears. The weight of all the days she has been absent hangs between them like a storm cloud. The world outside is muffled, rain drumming a persistent rhythm against the hospital windows, a soundtrack to the tension in the room. Eliza finally pushes the door open, the squeal of hinges cutting through the heavy silence. Her gaze locks on him, lingering for a moment too long. "James." Her voice falters, cracking slightly under the weight of everything she has left unsaid. James doesn't move. He watches her, chest tight, trying to reconcile the woman who stands before him with the memories of laughter, kisses, and promises. "You're late," he says quietly, voice low, controlled, but there is an undercurrent of pain that she can't ignore. "I know," she whispers, stepping closer, but stopping short of the bed. I had to finish." "Finish what?" James interrupts, eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and hurt. "Your career? Your life?" "Because I was waiting for you to be here. And you weren't." Her lips part, words caught in her throat. She looks down, ashamed, twisting the strap of her bag nervously. "James, I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to?" The words come sharp, brittle, carrying the weight of every empty promise, every missed phone call, every night he spent imagining her walking through that door and finding it empty. "You chose to be somewhere else, while I was here, facing everything alone. The air between them seems to thicken, dense with unspoken feelings. Nurse Rowan, still just outside the room, watches quietly, sensing the fragility of the moment. She knows that one wrong word, one missed gesture, could send this delicate confrontation spiraling into resentment. Yet she also knows that the truth must be faced, and she allows them the space to navigate it themselves. Eliza takes a tentative step closer, eyes glistening. "James, I didn't realize. I didn't understand how much it would hurt you, being left like this. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing?" James repeats bitterly, the corners of his mouth twitching. "The right thing? Tell me, Eliza, was it really the right thing when I called and all I heard was your voice saying, 'I can't, I'm busy'?" Her hand reaches out slowly, almost instinctively, but stops inches from his. Her thumb hovers, trembling, over the hospital blanket. I'm here now," she says, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to. I want to make it right." James swallows hard, his heart torn between longing and resentment. The memories of rainy nights, quiet mornings, whispered secrets, they clash violently with the present, where absence has carved deep lines into his trust. "It's not that simple," he says finally, voice low but firm. "You don't just show up and erase the hurt, Eliza. You don't just come back and pretend like nothing happened." She nods, tears spilling freely now, streaking her cheeks. "I know. I have to earn it back. I have to prove that I'm here for you, truly." The tension between them is almost tangible, a living thing in the room. Every word, every pause, every glance carries the weight of their shared history, their love, and the fractures that now threaten to tear it apart. The storm outside seems to mirror the storm inside, relentless, unyielding, beautiful in its chaos. James shifts slightly, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. His eyes, dark and searching, find hers, and for a moment, silence reigns. The world outside the hospital fades, leaving only the two of them, raw and exposed. Standing at the precipice of choice. Nurse Rowan watches from the doorway, her presence a quiet anchor, knowing that the confrontation is just beginning, but also understanding that sometimes the hardest truths must be spoken before healing can start. The second stretch, taut and fragile, until James finally speaks, voice trembling but steady. "I need to know, are you really here, Eliza? Or is this just another moment before you leave again?" Eliza's fingers tighten around his hand, finally bridging the gap, their warmth electric against the sterile cold of the hospital room. "I'm here," she whispers, her voice raw with honesty. "I want to be. I don't want to leave you again." For a heartbeat, the world seems to hold its breath. The rain outside softened into a gentle patter. The storm inside mirrored in hearts, learning to confront pain, guilt, and love simultaneously. The hospital room is quiet, except for the low hum of machines and the occasional distant echo of footsteps along the sterile corridor. James sits upright, heart pounding, staring at Eliza with a mixture of longing and hurt that makes every breath feel heavy. Rain has ceased outside, leaving droplets clinging to the window pane like tiny crystals. Reflecting the pallor of the fluorescent lights. Eliza stands near the door, her coat damp, hands clenching the strap of her bag. Every inch of her posture radiates tension, guilt, and the fragile vulnerability of someone confronting the consequences of choices made in haste. The space between them feels enormous, yet electrified, each heartbeat sending ripples through the silence. I didn't know how to balance it all," she begins, voice trembling. "I thought I could have my career and U.S., but I realize now I was wrong. I left you when you needed me most." Jane swallows, eyes dark with pain. "You left me, Eliza. I waited. I waited for you to be here, for you to hold my hand, and you weren't. You are somewhere else, somewhere more important than me. Do you understand how that feels? Her tears finally escape, rolling down her cheeks, glinting like fractured sunlight on her pale skin. I thought I was doing the right thing, she whispers, shaking. I was terrified of failing, of losing myself in this relationship. I thought if I succeeded, we'd be secure, happy. But all I did was hurt you. James leans back slightly, the blanket around him feeling heavier than usual. Success? Happiness? None of that matters if you're not here when it counts. You can't chase a future while abandoning the present. His voice softens slightly, the love still there, raw and unbroken beneath the hurt. I needed you. I needed us. Eliza's shoulders tremble, the dam of fear and guilt breaking. I was scared. I didn't want to be weak. I thought my ambition would prove I could be strong. But I was wrong. I was cowardly. James exhales, his hands gripping the edge of the bed as if holding on to reality itself. Cowardly, or just human? Maybe we're both learning what love really demands. His gaze softens slightly, the pain still evident but mixed now with a fragile hope. A faint knock interrupts them. Nurse Rowan stands at the doorway, clipboard in hand, her eyes sharp yet gentle. She doesn't speak, but her presence is a reminder of truth spoken, of consequences acknowledged. Her gaze flickers from Eliza to James, silently affirming the gravity of the moment, then retreats slightly, allowing the couple to navigate their storm alone. Eliza swallows, taking a cautious step closer. James, I want to be here truly. I want to hold your hand, to be your strength, not your absence. I can't undo the days I missed, but I can be here now, if you'll let me. James studies her, searching for sincerity, searching for the Eliza. He remembers the woman who laughed in the rain with him, who whispered dreams into his ear, whose heart beat in rhythm with his own. Slowly, he nods, his hand trembling as he reaches for hers. Fingers brush, sparks, connection, both familiar and foreign after days of distance. Do you mean it? He asks quietly, voice thick. Not just words, truly? She meets his gaze, raw vulnerability exposed. Yes, James, I mean it with every part of me. I can't promise I'll never falter, but I can promise I'll fight for us. I'll be here, fully, no more excuses. The confession hangs in the air, a fragile bridge between past mistakes and a potential future. James squeezes her hand gently, the warmth anchoring him to the present, tethering him to hope. Then we start again, not forgetting the past, but learning from it, together. Her tears spill freely now, unashamed and cleansing. She steps closer, pressing her forehead to his, their breaths mingling. The hospital lights seem softer now, the room shrinking to a cocoon of intimacy, love, and the aching truth of human fragility. I've missed you, he admits, voice breaking, every day, every night. Even when I was angry, even when I felt abandoned, I never stopped loving you. Eliza presses a kiss to his temple, a promise and an apology entwined. And I've missed you more than I can say. I was so afraid, James, afraid of failure, of losing myself. But losing you, that was the real fear. They sit in silence, hearts still racing, the storm outside having passed, but leaving the residue of emotion in its wake. Every word exchanged, every confession, is a thread weaving them back together. Yet the tension of what comes next lingers, the hospital monitors, the looming surgery, the uncertainty of tomorrow. Love has been tested, raw and vulnerable, but it has survived this confrontation. Nurse Rowan peers through the doorway once more, a small, approving smile playing on her lips. She knows the hardest step has been taken, the truth laid bare, but the path ahead will require more courage, more honesty, more trust. The storm has passed, but the aftermath demands attention. James shifts, pulling Eliza's hand gently into his lap. "We have a long way to go," he murmurs, eyes fixed on hers. "But maybe we can face it. Together." Eliza nods, tears slipping freely, fingers entwined with his. "Together," she whispers, a vow that carries the weight of remorse, hope, and love. The room is quiet again, but now it's filled with possibility. They sit, hands clasped, hearts beating in tandem, staring at the ceiling as if willing the world to wait for them, if only for a moment. The hospital room is quiet now, the storm of words and confessions having passed, leaving a delicate tension hanging in the air. James sits propped against the pillows, blanket wrapped around him, eyes fixed on the ceiling as if searching for answers written in the harsh white tiles. Eliza sits beside him, hands trembling slightly, fingers brushing against his as she hesitates, unsure of how to proceed without reopening old wounds. For a long moment, neither speaks. The room is filled with the faint hum of monitors and the distant echo of hospital life, a world continuing outside their fragile bubble. Outside, the evening light filters through the window, painting the sterile walls with a soft, golden hue. It's almost serene, but beneath it lies the undercurrent of fear and uncertainty that has defined their past few days. Eliza finally exhales, her chest rising and falling with the weight of unspoken words. "James, I can't stop thinking about how close I came to losing you," she whispers, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I was making the right choice, but I see now. I was blind." James turns his head slightly to meet her gaze. The anger and hurt are still there, etched deep into his eyes, but there is a flicker of something softer, something that has survived the storm. "It's not that simple, Eliza. You've left scars, not just in my heart, but in the trust between us. I can't just pretend it didn't happen." She reaches for his hand, this time fully, letting their fingers entwine with deliberate care. "I don't expect you to pretend. I don't want you to. I need you to know that I see it now. I see what matters, and I see you more than I ever have before. I don't want to lose us. Not like this. Not ever." James studies her, the sincerity in her eyes pulling at something buried beneath his pride and fear. He leans back slightly, still cautious, yet a subtle warmth creeps into his chest. "You know it's going to take more than words, right?" Eliza nods, biting her lip. "I know, and I'm ready. If you'll let me try. I'll fight for us every day, if you'll let me in again. No excuses, no distractions. Just us." For the first time in days, James allows himself to breathe a little easier. The sharp edges of anger dull slightly, replaced by the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they can rebuild what was broken. He shifts in bed, reaching out to tuck a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "It's going to be hard," he admits, voice soft. "I've been hurt, Eliza. I've been scared of losing you forever. I don't want to open myself and risk it again. But I also don't want to lose you." Her eyes glisten with tears, reflecting the soft glow of the evening sun. "Then let me prove it," she whispers, leaning closer, her forehead resting against his. "Let me show you that I'm here, fully, that I'm not going anywhere this time." James closes his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of her presence seep in, filling the empty spaces left by days of absence. He can feel the fragility of the moment, the tentative balance between hope and fear, and he knows that one wrong move could shatter it entirely. Yet, for the first time, he allows himself to lean into the possibility rather than the doubt. The memory of rainy nights, stolen kisses, and whispered secrets comes rushing back, no longer just a reminder of what was lost, but of what might still be reclaimed. The storm has passed, leaving behind a sense of clarity, A turning point where love can begin to heal. Eliza's hand moves to his cheek, thumb brushing over the faint stubble along his jaw. "I don't want to waste any more time, James," she murmurs. "I've realized what matters. What matters is us. Nothing else. Not work, not fear, not anything. Just you is." He looks at her, really looks at her, taking in the vulnerability, the sincerity, and the raw love shining through her eyes. "Then we start small," he says finally, a tentative smile tugging at his lips. "Step by step, day by day. I'll try. If you'll try too." She smiles, relief and hope mingling in her expression. "Step by step," she echoes. "I'll try. I promise." They sit in silence, hands intertwined, hearts beating in fragile unison. The hospital lights have softened into a gentle glow, and for the first time, the room feels less like a cage and more like a space where healing can begin. Outside, the city continues, unaware of the delicate reconciliation unfolding within these walls. The evening deepens, casting long shadows across the polished floors. James shifts closer, letting their foreheads meet, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her hand against his. The past cannot be undone, and the scars remain. But in this moment, vulnerability and honesty have created a bridge over the fractures of pride and fear. "Promise me," he whispers, voice barely audible, "that if either of us falters, we speak. No hiding, no running, just truth, always. I promise," she replies, eyes locked on his, tears still glistening, but a determined light shining through. No more running. No more hiding, just U.S. always. They sit together, the weight of unspoken regrets slowly lifting, replaced by the fragile, tentative hope of a future they will now navigate together. The turning point has arrived, not as a resolution, but as a beginning, a chance to rebuild from the ruins of absence and fear. Outside, a final gust of wind shakes the rain-soaked streets, scattering leaves across the sidewalks, and the city glimmers under the last light of dusk. Inside, James and Eliza hold each other, hands entwined, hearts aligned, knowing that the next steps will demand courage, honesty, and love. Yet, for the first time, they feel ready to face them together. The hospital corridors are quiet now, the hum of activity reduced to a distant echo. Outside, the city is cloaked in night, the glow of streetlights painting fractured reflections on rain-slicked streets. Inside, the room is dim, the overhead light softened to a warm glow, giving the space a fragile intimacy that feels almost stolen from the harsh reality of the hospital. James sits propped against his pillows, blanket tucked around him, his hand brushing against Eliza's as she sits beside him. Neither speaks at first. The silence is heavy, but not oppressive. It's a silence that carries the weight of past hurt, unspoken fears, and the tentative hope of rebuilding trust. Finally, Eliza exhales, a shaky breath carrying years of regret and longing. I never wanted to leave you feeling alone, James," she says softly, eyes glistening in the dim light. "I thought I was doing what was best for us, for the future. But I see now that I was wrong. So very wrong." James shifts slightly, his fingers tightening around hers. "You left, Eliza. You left when I needed you most. And I can't pretend it didn't hurt. Every moment, every heartbeat without you felt like a betrayal, even if you didn't mean it that way." Her hand moves to his cheek, thumb brushing lightly over his stubble. I know it hurt. And I'm sorry for everything. For leaving, for not seeing, for not being there when you needed me. I was scared. Scared? James repeats, voice low, tinged with incredulity. Of what? Losing your career? Losing control? Or losing me? Eliza's eyes drop, shame and honesty colliding. All of it. I was terrified of failing, terrified of being vulnerable. But I realize now, the only thing that truly matters is us. Always us. James studies her, the raw truth in her eyes pulling at the edges of his hurt. His chest tightens, a mix of lingering pain and an almost unbearable yearning. You realize that words aren't enough, right? I know, she whispers, leaning closer. I don't expect you to forgive me instantly. I need you to know that I'm here, fully. No more hiding, no more running. They sit together, foreheads nearly touching, sharing breaths and unspoken confessions. Outside, the rain has stopped entirely, leaving a stillness that mirrors the tentative calm in their hearts. The storm of the past days, the absence, the hurt, has left scars, but also created space for vulnerability and honesty to take root. Eliza shifts, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. I've carried secrets, James, about my fears, about the things I never wanted to admit to anyone, not even myself. James tightens his arm around her, gently, reassuringly. Then tell me. I want to know you, all of you, the fears, the dreams, everything. She exhales shakily, her voice barely above a whisper. I was scared I wasn't enough, that my ambition, my drive, would push you away, that you'd realize I wasn't the person you fell in love with, the person you thought you knew. James leans back slightly, taking her face in his hands. Eliza, you don't get to hide pieces of yourself from me. I fell in love with all of it, the ambition, the fears, the joy, the mistakes. That's what makes you. You. That's what makes us. Her lips tremble into a smile, wet with unshed tears. You really mean that? Every word, he replies, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. Every single word. And I want to hear everything, even the parts you think I might not understand. Nothing hidden, nothing left unsaid. Eliza nods, taking a deep breath. Then listen. I've always been terrified of failing you. Terrified that my dreams would take me away from us. That I'd lose myself. And lose you. I didn't see that the real failure would have been to abandon you now, when you needed me most. James draws her into a close embrace, the warmth of her body against his chest, melting the remaining ice of resentment. Then we'll face it together, he murmurs. No more running, no more fear. Just us, whatever comes next. A faint laugh escapes her, fragile but real, blending with soft sobs. It feels like a lifetime has passed in just one night. It has, he replies, pressing a kiss to her temple. And yet, we're still here. Somehow, against everything, we're still here. They sit in silence for a long while, allowing the words and emotions of the night to settle between them. The city outside hums quietly, indifferent to the intimate revelations inside this small hospital room. For the first time, they feel the tentative beginnings of true reconciliation, the fragile threads of trust and love being rewoven stitch by careful stitch. Eliza lifts her head, looking into James's eyes. I've been holding so much in, so many fears, regrets, doubts. But being here with you, I feel lighter somehow. Like maybe we can actually survive all of this together. James nods slowly, brushing a hand through her damp hair. We can. We have to. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Every tear, every mistake. It all leads us here. A quiet knock on the door pulls them from their cocoon. Nurse Rowan stands outside, a small smile on her face, clipboard tucked under her arm. She doesn't speak, just nods once in silent approval, acknowledging the courage it took for them to confront their truths tonight. That Eliza and James exchange a glance, a mix of relief, vulnerability, and lingering uncertainty. The night has been raw, revealing, and transformative, but the journey isn't over. The love they've rekindled is fragile, delicate, and precious, and both know that the true test will come with the challenges of tomorrow. James shifts slightly, holding her hand tighter. "Promise me," he murmurs, voice low, "that we continue to speak, to be honest, to be here for each other, always, no matter what." "I promise," she whispers, tears shining in her eyes, lips brushing against his in a gentle, tender kiss. "Always, no matter what." They settle back into the quiet embrace, the night wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. Outside, the city sleeps, unaware of the hearts being mended inside. The world will continue, but tonight belongs only to them, filled with confessions, laughter, tears, and the fragile, shimmering hope that love, when laid bare, can survive even the harshest storms. The first rays of morning stretch across the hospital room, soft and forgiving, cutting through the sterile shadows of the night. James lies in his bed, eyes blinking open to the familiar glow of dawn. His body still weak, but his spirit gradually reclaiming its strength. The lingering fear of yesterday has begun to fade, replaced by a quiet, steady pulse of hope that thrums between him and the woman sitting by his side. Eliza is already awake, seated close, her fingers laced through his. Her eyes, red from the night before, now shimmer with a renewed determination, a clarity born from seeing how fragile life can be and how precious love truly is. The subtle hum of the heart monitor is now less intimidating. It is a heartbeat of persistence, a rhythm of survival, and the promise of shared tomorrows. "Good morning," she whispers, brushing a strand of damp hair from his forehead. The gesture is tender, intimate, an unspoken vow of devotion. "How are you feeling?" James attempts a smile, the movement weak but genuine. "Better. Because you're here," he murmurs, voice hoarse but laced with warmth. "I felt you with me, even in the operating room. You were my anchor, Eliza." Her smile falters for a moment, fragile and unsure, but she leans closer, pressing her forehead to his. "I'll always be your anchor," she promises softly. "Two storms, through fear. Always?" The room is quiet for a few moments, filled only with the rhythm of their shared breaths. Every glance, every touch, carries a weight of unspoken apologies, regrets, and love. In this quiet, the hospital transforms from a sterile space of fear into a sanctuary of reconnection, a cocoon where their hearts can begin to heal together. Eliza speaks again, voice low and steady. "I've been reflecting on everything, on the moments I left you alone, on the times I put ambition above us. I realize now that nothing, no dream, no opportunity is worth the cost of losing you." James turns his head slightly to look at her, his eyes searching hers, reading every flicker of emotion. "I was scared," he admits, voice trembling. "Scared that you'd never come back, that the person I loved was gone. But now I see. You never really left, not entirely. That's what love does, I suppose. It clings, it waits, it survives." Eliza leans closer, fingers tracing the contours of his hand, feeling the warmth returning to him. "And I was selfish. I thought I was strong by being away, by focusing on work. But the truth is, strength is being present. Strength is loving fully, without reservations, without running from fear." James squeezes her hand, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then we have work to do," he says softly. "To rebuild, to heal, to reclaim what almost slipped through our fingers. It won't be perfect. It'll take time. But we'll do it, together." She nods, tears of relief mingling with laughter, a mixture of vulnerability and joy. "Together," she echoes, and it feels like a promise written into the very air around them. Over the following days, small, intimate moments fill the room touches. Whispers, shared laughter that is both tender and cathartic. Each gesture, each conversation is infused with authenticity. The mundane routines of recovery meals, medication, walks through the quiet hospital halls become vessels for their reconnection. Every fleeting touch is a reassurance, every soft word a reaffirmation that love is alive, resilient, and present. One afternoon, Nurse Rowan enters with a gentle smile. "You two are doing well," she observes. It's rare to see love survive trials with such patience and grace. "Keep nurturing it." Eliza beams at the nurse, gratitude shining in her eyes. "We will," she promises. "We've seen what matters now, and we won't take it for granted." James chuckles softly, the sound a mixture of relief and renewed energy. "No more running," he says lightly, though his eyes are serious, steady. "No more hiding. Only us." As recovery progresses, Eliza begins to make small changes in her life, her priorities shifting quietly but irrevocably. Phone calls are returned with thoughtful consideration. Late-night work sessions are shortened, and she carves out time not just for him, but for shared dreams and plans that feel real, grounded, and mutual. The past tension and misalignment of priorities fade, replaced by a conscious effort to be present, to truly love, and to cherish each fleeting moment. One evening, as the sun sets and bathes the room in golden light, James reaches for her hand, drawing her close. "Do you remember our first night in the rain?" he asks softly, eyes glinting with the memory. Eliza laughs, a soft, melodic sound that fills the room. "How could I forget? You were drenched, shivering, and yet completely certain you could make me laugh." "And I did," he replies, smiling faintly. "Even in that moment, I think, I realized then that love isn't always about comfort. It's about endurance, about finding joy even when life drenches you in fear and uncertainty." She leans into him, a quiet sigh of contentment escaping. "And we endured," she murmurs. "Together. We almost lost it. But now I understand that love, real love, is worth every storm, every mistake, every tear. And it's ours to keep." James presses a gentle kiss to her temple, holding her close. "And let's promise, from here on, to never let fear come between us. To nurture this love, to protect it, and to grow together. Always." Her fingers tighten around his, the warmth of her touch carrying the weight of all her promises and apologies. "Always," she affirms. The night falls softly around them, outside and within, as the hospital quiets into a calm lull. For the first time in weeks, both feel a peace that is fragile yet profound. The trials they endured remain a memory, a shadow of lessons learned and love tested, but it no longer defines them. Instead, it strengthens them, etching resilience, empathy, and depth into the foundation of their relationship. And in this quiet, cinematic moment, with hands entwined, hearts beating in tandem, they understand the truth. Love reclaimed is not just a return to what was, it is a deliberate, tender creation of what can be.